Good afternoon. This is the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners for February 13th, 2018. I'm Commissioner Bud Blake, the chair of the board this year. And I'd like to start off by doing other introductions. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Commissioner John Hutchings. To his right is LaMedina Bomar, clerk of the board. To her right is Romero Chavez, the county manager. And to his right is Elizabeth Petrus, deputy prosecuting attorney. With that in mind, I'll ask Commissioner Edwards to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you join me in the pledge, I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Thank you, sir. With that in mind, I'll ask if there's a motion to approve today's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Tuesday, February 13, 2018 agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Tuesday, February 13, 2018 agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, and that motion carries. And board meeting minutes for February 6, 2018.
I move to approve the board meeting minutes from February 6, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting minutes for February 6, 2018. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, and that motion carries as well. Well, we had three presentations, and I'm going to skip down to the one for Thurston County receiving the 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. We call that the CAFR. And today we have with us the auditor for Thurston County, Mary Hall, and she is going to tell us a little bit about the award we received for Thurston County, and we've done it a number of times, and I'll just let her take it away from there and give us the background.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Blank, for allowing me to speak today. Yes, I'm very pleased to announce that we've been notified just recently that we've received our 11th consecutive Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for our 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And this certificate is the highest form of recognition that the Government Finance Officers Association presents in the area of government accounting and financial reporting. And Thurston County is one of only a few that actually go that extra step. We go beyond just the basic annual financial report to produce a CAFR instead, which is above what the State Auditor's Office requires on an annual basis. So I think it's right to say that this really supports our commitment to open government and transparency. So I'd like to have my financial services team stand up.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
in the back here. Because this really couldn't happen without them.
Stay standing.
So I'd like to thank my manager, Darren Bennett, and his team, Ron Haney, Kathy Goulet, Maggie Baker, who's not here, and also the rest of the staff who works really hard every day to ensure that we have really sound financial guidance in this county. So I hope you'll join me in thanking them.
Great. Sure. Any comments, questions?
Thank you so much, because we need every penny we can get to make it work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mary, I had a question for you.
Sure.
You have
A comment, you know, in the Olympic parlance of this, I mean, this, it's like for the 11th time, 11th year, this, like you're all gold medalists.
Yeah,
exactly. That's a great way to.
It's brilliant.
It's a great
absolutely
analogy.
brilliant. No silvers. I mean, this is the top.
We only go for the gold.
Yeah. Good job, Mary. Thank you, and staff,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, staff.
And
Yeah,
Mary,
thank
with this kind of professionalism, what does this do for the county as far as the financing and what have you? Can you give just a 30-second background on why the importance of this kind of effort is done?
This is very important for a number of reasons. When they look at our bond rating, for example,
Exactly.
they look at things like this, that we have very sound financial practices, because what we report is much more in-depth and thorough than what the basic requirement by the State Auditor's Office. So we're very transparent. It's like laying everything out on the table. And we do have very strong financial guidelines and financial practices in Thurston County.
Yeah, great. And with a great team like you have there, it's just been wonderful and very professional. Appreciate your hard work.
They're the best.
You bet. Okay, so I'm going to transition now to this February, as many people know, is African American History Month. And today we've invited Mr. Stephen Sesmala, who is a member of the community and I think still a professor out at one of the colleges, and I'll let him tell you about it. So, Stephen, you want to come up to the podium and kind of take a gander of what you've been doing here in the community? There you go. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here from a foreign country that we know of. I'll let you take it.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stephen Samala. I live in Tumwater. I've been in the United States since 1996. I came as a political asylee. It's different from a political refugee, but the difference is very subtle. I left my country not because I wanted to leave, but because of my political views that were not appreciated by the current administration. Prior to coming to the United States, I was one of the many delegates that wrote the Uganda Constitution that is still in existence at this point, although it has been amended so many times. So I left and sought political asylum in the United States, and I've lived in Washington State since. I've never been anywhere else. When I was here, I went back to school. I got my law degree and from UW, University of Washington, and now I currently work as a contracts counsel for the Department of Social and Health Services, and I also teach American government at our community college here. So I have a family. I have 4 kids. My son is serving in the United States Army. He's stationed in North Carolina, and one of my girls is a middle elementary school teacher in Highline School District, and my other daughter is just works for herself in Seattle. So that's a little bit about me. I appreciate being invited here as we celebrate the Black History Month, although the theme for this 2018 is African American in war times, from the Revolutionary War to the current. And although I've never served in the United States Army, but my son, I think, is doing that on my behalf and on the rest of my family, and I appreciate him for that. So that's a little bit about myself.
Yeah, great. Any comments or questions?
I'd just say thank you very much for coming and being the asset that you are to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I would only say, echo thank you, but I bet you're fun to sit down and talk with, because I bet you have a ton of stories that would just shock the conscience of many people.
I believe so.
So blessed for that. I'm glad you're here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen, can you just kind of back up and come forward just a little bit? As you left out of Uganda and you wrote the Constitution, just kind of give an overview of how that was and when your feet first hit ground here in the United States and how that was for you and your family. Kind of walk us through that experience.
Yes, I really came alone. My family didn't come until 4 years later, so I was here by myself. I couldn't afford to bring my family with me. I waited until 4 years after I had help with my friends and saved up some money to get them here. But when I did arrive San Francisco, I only had $80 in my pocket, and I had 2 pants and 2 shirts. And when I got to San Francisco, they asked me, because I had a visitor's visa, and the gentleman at the customs asked me, where's the rest of your stuff? You're visiting, and I said, this is all I have. And say, you're visiting and you don't have any money? I said, yeah, I'm visiting, but I have my sister in the United States is going to help me out. And so he said, he took me aside and looked in my bag and fortunately, there was some newspapers that were in English from home that talked about me and how I was in political trouble. And the guy said, "Oh, so you're in some sort of political trouble?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Why didn't you say so at the beginning?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. I was afraid, I guess." So he said, "I'm going to retain your passport, but I'm going to let you go, and you have to come back here, and then the judge will decide whether you stay in the United States or don't." And I said, "Okay." So I proceeded to come to Washington. And when I got here, my sister's like, "I don't have money to send you back, and it's going to be a long process. We can ask I have a lawyer who can talk to who can have the case transferred here to Seattle." Now that I'm a lawyer, if I knew what I know now, I could have sued the lawyer, but I didn't know any better. So what he did was he sort of, when I got to his office, he said, "Oh, this is a straightforward case. It's no problem. We just have to go down to the immigration and ask them to transfer the case over." I said, "Okay." So we got there, and I realized immediately that something was wrong. So they were looking at me, and they're looking back, and they're talking, and then eventually the guy comes over and said, "Well, they said they're going to detain you because San Francisco shouldn't have let you go until the judge have decided otherwise. So you're going to go to detention until the judge decides otherwise." Now looking back as a lawyer, I didn't need to go with the guy. All he had to do was file a motion in district court to have the case change of venue, and that was it. But he handed me over, and I was detained 3 weeks in the immigration detention. But when the government came back to present this case, they had enough evidence that I was really in political trouble, and the judge just said, "Well, welcome to my country. You are free to stay as long as you want." So that was how it happened. But and I'm here.
All right. See, I knew that story. That's what you want.
So anyway,
$8 in San Francisco is not much money at all.
Coupons, too, yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for your.
So stay right there. We're going to read a proclamation, then we're going to get a photo real quick, okay?
Thank you.
You bet. Hang on. Stay right there.
Whereas, during African American History Month, the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development are celebrated. And whereas in 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of Black history, advance the cause of civil rights, and strengthen families, communities, and the nation. And whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, a noted Black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, or the ASALH, and initiated Negro History Week in 1926. And whereas African Americans have played a significant role in the history of the nation and Washington State's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development, and whereas as a result of their determination, hard work, and perseverance, African Americans have made valuable and lasting contributions to our community and the state, achieving exceptional success in all aspects of society, including business, education, politics, science, and the arts. And whereas ASALH's 2018 theme, African Americans in Time of War, commemorates the centennial of the end of the First World War in 1918. And explores the complex meanings and implications of this international struggle and its aftermath. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Thurston County Commissioners hereby proclaim February as African American History Month in Thurston County, and urge all citizens to recognize the continued need to battle racism and to build a society that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. Adopted this 13th day of February 2018, signed by your county commissioners.
Come on up here, Stephen. Let's get a photo. So hopefully you can use this during your American history or something to the students. And you stand right here.
Thank you.
And I'm going to give that to you right there. He's going to get a picture of you right there. Two. I'm going to help you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank your son for serving in the Army, too.
Thank you, Anthony, your son.
We're a couple Army guys.
Oh, yeah. He knows.
Very kind. Thank you, sir. God bless.
Thank you. Okay, so the third item we have for a presentation is the presentation of the Centennial train station, and we have I think Romero Chavez is going to kick it off, and then we have the gentleman come up and do a presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Bueller and Mr. Bob Moorhead. They're going to be walking us through a little bit of historical perspective on the Centennial train station located in East Olympia. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Bob Moorhead. It happens to be a typo on the sheet. My Moorhead is spelled M-O-O-R-H-E-A-D for the official record, of which I hope there's none. I'm one of about 55 volunteers at the Olympia train station. As many of you may know, the station has been staffed only by volunteers. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary the first week in May, and we are thought to be one of 3 stations in the country that is staffed only by volunteers, and we are thought to be the only Amtrak station in the country that was built by the community with donated materials, donated labor, contributions, and a community effort. So, the presentation that we're presenting is one that we've been going out to some of the civic clubs, and it's sort of a recruiting poster for our station for additional volunteers, but it does give the history of the last 30 years leading up to today. So how many of you have been to Centennial Station? Show of hands. How many have actually ridden a train? Okay, I know Romero has because I put him on one Saturday morning. And so we're pretty pleased that that's the situation. This all started back about 1985. This is a nightmare. This was the Olympia Railroad Station from 1971 to 1993. It was at the East Olympia junction of the railroads near the East Olympia store on Rich Road. And as you can see, many of our high school students have a better place to wait for the bus than Amtrak passengers had to wait for the train.
Looks like a big doghouse.
A doghouse. We prefer to say it was a school bus shelter, but
Okay.
I won't contradict a commissioner on that.
Yours, yeah.
And there were no lights. There was a muddy parking lot between the tracks, the 3-way tracks, and the foundation for that building is still there and can be seen if you know where to look for it. So that was the nightmare that members of this community were facing. And now I pushed the wrong button, so there we are. So the dream was to have a modern railroad station. And many of you have been there. This is a picture. What's amazing about this picture is this is an artist rendering by an artist named J. Craig Thorpe, which was produced and reproduced and sold for a fundraiser 5 years before the station was built. But it's amazing how accurate it is as for what the station is. There was a depot committee, Amtrak Depot Committee Incorporated, a 501c3 organization that's now continues but operates under the name of Centennial Volunteers. And people like Rich DeGarmo, Buck Harmon, George Barner, former commissioner, Ken Marmon, Lloyd Flem, who's still active in the statewide rail groups, and Lauren Harrisad were among those of many who were in that. Fundraising began about 1986. I bought my first print of this from city council member Gil Carboni at the time for $10. There are bricks in our patio between the station and the tracks with names and memorials on it. They sold for $25 or $35. And back in that era, Washington State Department of Transportation said, no, thank you. We don't see any need for railroad service. Well, that at least has changed in the last 20 years, thank goodness. So taking shape, Thurston County Public Works provided the site for the station. It was a former county road department gravel pit. There were donations of cash, labor, and materials from all over, from Talgo Train Company, from Amtrak a few dollars, from electrical companies, from contractors. Lacey architect Harold Dahlke donated his services to design the building and drop the blueprints. And there were some federal ICE-T funds secured by the county road department to build the first parking lot, which was officially considered a transit park and ride lot. It took about a year to actually physically build the station. Making it happen, this is a very poor picture of opening day. We're still looking for a better photo for our presentation. At that time, there were 6 trains a day. Actually, there were 4 trains every day and 6 trains 3 days a week. At that time, there was about 30 volunteers. We're now up at about 60. The original hours of operation were about 8 a.m. to noon and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. We are now open from 8 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. Keeping it up. Intercity Transit was gracious enough to accept the donation of the property. They paid the Centennial volunteers $1 for the station building. We don't know if the dollars have been delivered yet. That was only 25 years ago. DOT, of course, has expanded their operations within the corridor greatly. They now fund 8 of the 10 trains a day that are there. This station is the 4th busiest in the state of Washington for Amtrak boardings. For the last 3 years, we have boarded more than 63,000 people a year.
Oh, wow.
The volunteers, we meet 99.9, we think, % of the trains. I have to admit, I was on the northbound Coast Starlight about 5 years ago when I came in at 2:30 in the morning instead of 6:30 in the evening, and there wasn't anybody there. So we're not quite 100%. We usually have 2 volunteers on duty. We have 3 shifts a day, 3 5-hour shifts a day to cover the current schedule. Preparing for the future. We had to change the date on this slide. We were expecting this to be December 18th, 2017, but we know that on the first day of the expanded schedule of 14 trains a day, we had a disaster in DuPont. And that has pushed back the expansion of the schedule until sometime this fall. WSDOT has not announced the date of that. At that time, we'll be expanding from our 13 hours now to 16 hours a day. We'll have 3 5-hour shifts a day. And many of our volunteers are aging. And we now have some limitations. There are some who prefer not to drive at night. The last train is now due at about 9:30 in the evening. When we expand the schedule, the first train will be at 7:15 in the morning and the last train at about 10 p.m. So what can you do to support us? Of course, the county commissioners have supported us with the donation of the land 25 years ago. The back half of the station is a drop-in station for the county sheriff's department. We appreciate their occasional presence. It just sort of keeps things on a level course. But I have a phone number if anybody would like to sign up to get interviewed for our being on our crew. And typically a new volunteer will work 2 or 3 5-hour shifts with an experienced volunteer or 2, and then will be put on the will call basis. Luckily, we have enough people to fill our schedule, which is a nominal 90 5-hour shifts a month. And this is all volunteer. I do want to acknowledge that the 15 volunteers who put in the most hours, and it is typically something more than 300 hours a year, but the top 15 are awarded from Amtrak a round trip on the trains that serve our area. They can go as far south as Los Angeles, as far east as Chicago, and can work in the corridor up and down the coast. So that's who we are. We appreciate the support the commissioners have shown over the last 25 years and more. And if you're ready to volunteer, I'll be happy to give you a phone number and answer any questions you may have.
So what's your phone number?
The phone number to volunteer is not me. I do have it, though.
Okay.
It's Audrey Skogseth. She serves as the chair of our internal board of directors, SKAUGSETH.
Audrey.
And her phone number in Lacey is area code 360-870-4700. Any other questions?
Do you have a question, comment?
I think the sheriff's been there helping you right along, hasn't he?
Yes. Yeah, there was a budget. There was a bit of a budget crunch when they weren't there very often, but that's been resolved over the years. Thank you, Commissioner.
I remember picking up grandparents at that lean-to. What'd you call it? A cooling shed?
We like to call it the school bus stop.
Yeah, yeah. Back when it was just wet, damp, and cold and icky. Mm-hmm. And then after this station was built, picking up my daughter to and fro from Oregon. And what a change. And it's something I can be proud of. I mean, I love the Amtrak station that we have. And I had no idea that the county donated land, and I did not know that it was built by donations, nor did I know we have 60 volunteers putting in carrying 63,000 passengers in and out. That's a cool story.
Yeah,
it's a very cool story.
Yes, we as a group are very proud of our service for the last 25 years.
I just want to repeat the number again, and that is 360-870-4700. You don't have to check it. I wrote it down. I got it.
Yes.
And it's Audrey. If
Audrey.
People want to volunteer.
Yeah, she starts the process.
And there's a process to go through to be vetted and all that such, I would imagine.
Yeah. But actually, if we can get through that process, you can too. So.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
One question.
Yes, Commissioner.
So you said you and your team. What is it that makes one want to volunteer their time to do this? What's the one essence of life that they get out of bed and want to go to volunteer at a train station?
Well, I think for some of us, it's maybe we grew up with Lionel trains. You know, we get to play with the big set, the full-size set. But an interesting thing, if I may take a moment, about 4 years ago when I was on duty on a Saturday morning, a UW grad student introduced herself, and she was looking at, we have a vending machine for tickets. We as volunteers do not handle cash or tickets. We make train announcements, we help with luggage, give some information that we have. And when she got done observing the station for 3 hours, she says, well, why do you volunteer for a big corporation like Amtrak? And the answer is we don't. We volunteer for the community.
That's right. Very well said.
And the budget for the station is about $100,000 a year. There's an interlocal agreement managed by Intercity Transit that involves the commissioner, the county, 3 or 4 of the cities, the port, Amtrak, and basically there's about 8 organizations that donate $10,000 a year for the lights and the upkeep and the maintenance. And so it's we volunteers are volunteers, but there's community support throughout.
Sure. And Bob, could you introduce the volunteers that came with you today?
Me. Yeah. Yes, Mike Beeler is a member of our board. He's been a volunteer for about 18 years, I believe. And Noel Nordquist is one of our volunteers, typically on duty on Monday evenings. And you've been with us 3 or 4 years now?
Almost 3 years.
3 years. Yeah, sure. And I've been doing it for only 16. We have 4 of the original volunteers who have been volunteering for 25 years.
Oh, my word.
Are still with us.
A quarter of a century there, huh? Oh,
yes.
My word. Well, thank you so much, sir, for coming here and enlightening us and let us know a little bit about Thurston County and the trains and the volunteers. It's been very, very gracious of you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're at the point where we have the opportunity for the public to address the board. But before we move forward, I have 2 items I want to mention. On February 20th, we will not be having a BOCC meeting. We've pushed that to the following week, so just let everybody know that. And then some people might be seeing the red carnations on some of us. It is American Heart Month, and we will be addressing that more in the BOH just shortly after this particular meeting. So with that in mind, the opportunity for the public to address the board, I have the sign-in sheet, and the rules are that those who are first come, first serve is how I'll call it out. We have 3 minutes posted up on the clock there. It'll count down to 0. You hear that little microwave sound, and when you're done, that's it. But unless you're in mid-thought, then I'll let you finish your thoughts, and but I'll ask you to kind of wrap it up. When you come up to the podium, just kind of state generally where you're from in the county and your name for the record, and then we'll let it go. So first person I have is Mr. Jan Tvetten.
While he comes up, I might mention that the Amtrak volunteers have departed.
Oh. Thank you, Trainmaster.
Commissioners, my name is Jan Tvetten. You have before you a letter that was addressed to you and to the county assessor. I have met with the county assessor staff today, and we had a very good meeting, and they said they would take this into consideration. Yeah, I've been before you several times now, and I told you I gave my son Todd 5 acres last year, and my son Richard 2.3 acres. Todd's acres is rich in gophers, and that's a separate issue. And today I want to talk about the 2.3 acres that I gave to my son Richard. In 1967, when I bought my property, I had 5 acres that was adjacent to it, and I short platted it. And I short platted it consistent with the rules that existed at that time. In other words, I designed the lot so that you could put a house and still be consistent with the setback of 100 feet. Today, the setback has increased to 300 feet. And in addition, he is faced with having over 45 large oak trees on the property. So when you take the fact that he cannot develop within the 300-foot setback and the oak drip line plus 5 feet, out of 102,000 square feet, he can only develop on 5,000 square feet. The county, by regulation, have managed to take 95% of his property. Now, Richard has worked with the county, and he wants to provide on that lot a place for his mother-in-law. That's a promise that the boy made to his father-in-law. And now that we are faced with these limitations, he has to sort of shoehorn in a small modular home to accommodate. So we are grateful to the staff for the fact that we were able to work together and make that happen. It isn't ideal, but it is at least we get something out of the property. Now I'd like you to take the memo that's before you and go to the very last page. You will see on top a picture of the pump house and an oak tree next to it. Then the oak tree is about 3 inches wide. Now look at diameter. Now look on the lower picture, 50 years later, and the tree is now over 12 inches diameter and over 40 feet height. You see also behind the pump house some scrub oaks. Well, in 1967, shortly thereafter, when I bought the property, I went in and I removed a lot of the scrub oak. And I said to myself, I want this to be a beautiful place with large oak trees. And I left about 45 plus trees that I thought had the potential of becoming big, beautiful trees. And we worked with the county and the Fish and Wildlife, State Fish and Wildlife, and got a hydraulics permit. And we cleaned out the creek in the area where my house is. There's a big dam there. And we took the mud that came out of it, we put it around the oak trees, and we made raised plantings. There's probably a couple of hundred rhododendrons throughout that area. And we watered it. And now, because we have taken care of it, those oak trees are big, they're huge. I had to rent a truck with a boom on it to get up 65 feet to prune the trees to make this room for the 5,000 acres. We are grateful for the cooperation of staff and getting this done, but I honestly think that when you take 95% of a man's property by regulations, there's time for some rethinking of what we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words. So the next person I have is Mr. Doug Carmen. Hello, sir. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Doug Carmen with the Long Lake Management District, as well as the Thurston County Shoreline Coalition. I apologize for being back here again on pretty much the same subject that I've been on. I spoke with you on July 25th, October 17th, October 31st, and November 3rd, requesting to be allowed to participate in the, as stakeholders, in the formation of the Shoreline Master Program, and actually the rewrite of it. On December 12th, the county manager presented to you that, yes, we're going to do that, and we're going to start a interested party group that would give input to the regulatory group, and you voiced your approval of that. Now we find ourselves in February, and while on the 11th of February, the planning department decided that to invite certain individuals to be part of the regulatory group. So it's a small handful of people that he has asked to be on it. And unlike what the county manager had said, I'm not one of those. I wasn't asked to be on it. So we do favor the interested party group, as the county manager suggested, because that would be a better forum for the diverse interests that are stakeholders. You have freshwater, you have marine environment, you have businesses, you have, I mean, there's just homeowners associations, there's other people, many people who are interested in participating in this and have done the studying and work on it. But if you add these people, a small number of people to the regulators group, or a large number of these people to the regulators group, it's really going to cause confusion. We believe that it'll cause confusion and may even alienate the regulators, because there's already about 10 or 12 of those on there, and you add another 5, 6 to 8 people, it could cause problems, especially if you get people in there who have one interest only and cause problems. But if you do put us on the regulators group, we need to have about 8 to 10 people because of the diverse interests represented by those stakeholders. So, well, it's interesting to note too that back in the beginning in September, in the flow chart for the plan for the SMP, it stated that there would be a special interest group that put together information and channeled it to the regulators group, that channeled it to the community group, that channeled it to the planning commissioners. So what Mr. Romero had said is exactly what you had originally said in September. And so we just need to get this going and get it done so that we have good input. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your words there, sir. So the next person I have is Mr. Dave Pethia. Hello, Dave. How you doing there?
Doing well, thank you.
All righty. You got the floor. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Hutchinson, Commissioner Blake, Commissioner Edwards, staff, and people, folks present here for the meeting. I'm here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to thank the commissioners for their... Oh, of course. My name is David Pethia, and I'm the Fire Commissioner for West Thurston. I'm here basically to thank the staff and the commissioners for the purchase of a communication system that will completely change how we do business in the emergency response group of people in the county. I don't think, having just come back from a meeting with the emergency operations personnel, I don't think any of us realize the potential that this program has and will have in the future. And that's basically, I'd like to come back sometime in the near future and report on the strides that we make as we install the protocols necessary for its operation and how it will affect the community at large. But again, thank you very much. You've done a terrific favor to me personally, whether you know it or not, as well as to the first responders. So thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your good words there. So that is the end of those who signed up on the list. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to raise their hand, come to the podium? I'll bring you forward. Seeing nobody, we'll move on. And so the next item is the...
Chair, may I ask a question of staff?
Yeah, sure.
Can we get an update on the lake issue regarding what Mr. Carmen was discussing or talking about?
Yeah, I will
Sometime.
follow up and give you an update next meeting.
Oh, great. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So now we're at the point where it's item number 2, County Manager's Update. And I'll ask Mr. Chavez if he has any.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. I have a couple of items to follow up, and this related to Mr. Theven testimony. Last week, he provided testimony related to the Habitat Conservation Plan, and it was related to one of the properties that he donated to one of his sons, where through the review, they found the presence of a pocket gopher habitat. So within that context, absent the county having an HCP, an individual property owner has to go through their own HCP, working through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And this is a similar story as to what we saw last year related to the McLeans. I'd just like to make an acknowledgement to Mr. Theven, as we made an acknowledgement to the McLeans. We as a county staff, and I believe I can speak from the county commissioners, we feel the process that we have to go through to deal with this federal regulation. I wish, and we wish, that we can probably help you within the whole process as to how we can lessen the impact they not just have on your property, but also on your personal life, and the time and effort that you have spent, as well with your son, developing this HCP. Through the process, when we went through the McLeans, there was a lot of conditions the U.S. Fish and Wildlife imposed as to how we can manage that. And one of the conditions was that any property owner who has an impact on the pocket gopher, they need to set aside a portion of their property, as you stated last week, in which needs to be recorded in perpetuity as a conservation easement. And also through that process, on the conservation easement remains within your ownership. But the responsibility as to how we're going to be reporting landed on the county. And the county is responsible to inspect, as well as the county is responsible to send a report on a yearly basis to U.S. Fish and Wildlife as to how that particular conservation easement is being put in place and managed. And this is something that perhaps we wouldn't like to do as a normal practice, but certainly this is going to be a stopgap until the county has a habitat conservation plan, HCP, where at that point everything will be managed a little bit differently. So I'd just like to acknowledge the process that you have gone through. Certainly does not what the county would like to see on every citizen they have to go through. And we'll continue to work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to bring a little more sense of expectations and predictability in the process for future property owners who would like to develop the property. Related to today's testimony, and this is to yet another property donated to one of the other sons, and this just happens to be another regulation the county has to comply. Related to the Oregon white oaks, this is a habitat related to the western gray squirrel, among other species. Back in 1993, the State Department of Fish and Wildlife placed that particular species as a threatened species and identified the Oregon white oak as their habitat as to how they like to survive and thrive. So as a result of that, Thurston County is not the only county who has to deal with the Oregon white oak, the impacts on that particular habitat and perhaps the mitigation associated with that. You and I had a nice meeting over lunch where I explained my experience dealing with the Oregon white oak and the western gray squirrel mitigation process in my past life in Pierce County. And I understand what you're saying, and I feel for you. And at the end of the day, we wish that we could have eased the regulation, but unfortunately, yet we have to obey with the mandates. In this case, the state, and the previous case is the federal government, as to how we need to move forward and give you at least that relief to move forward and implement the plans that you need to do on your properties. And that's all I want to close the loop on that.
Okay, can I ask one question?
Jan, let me get through the program, then we'll come back to it, okay? I'm sorry. So the next item we have is the consent items, which is item number 3. We have consent items A through E. And now let's see if there's any questions or if there's a motion.
No questions from Gary? Okay. Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent items A through E.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve consent items A through E. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries. So we're moving to the department items, which is item number 4. We have emergency services. Mr. Kurt Harding, he is going to give an overview of the approved amendment number 2 to the patient charting system contract. You have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here to request that the Board approve an amendment to the patient charting system contract, which will allow continued use of the patient charting system by EMS personnel. This amendment allows MedicOne to continue using the current patient charting system through August 31st, 2018, until a new RFP or until an RFP for a replacement system is completed. On February 6th, the Board authorized MedicOne to issue an RFP to solicit vendors for a replacement system. The current system is no longer supported by the vendor, and which was purchased by a different company. So therefore, we're going to a month-to-month process with this amendment so that we can in turn keep the system working, because right now the current software has 2 different platforms, an Android platform and a Windows platform. So it was made clear during a user group meeting with the new vendor in late September that the Windows platform would no longer be supported and that the Android platform had questionable longevity outside of the next 3 years. So requesting the Board approve, authorizing the, or approve this amendment, and then and also that the monthly amount of this amendment will be $8,887.50 a month, and that's in the current approved budget.
Any questions, Mr. Harding?
No, sir.
This contract ends September 2018, September 1?
August 31st, 2018, which is September 1st.
September 1st, okay. No, that's it.
All right, is there a motion?
Yes, sir. Move to approve amendment number 2 to the patient charting system contract with ESO Solutions Incorporated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and your motion carries.
Thank you.
You bet. So item number 5 of the department items is essential services, and we have Mr. Martin Casey, who's going to give us a background on a Thurston County Flex Unit expansion project and all the good things that go with that.
All right. We're here today to seek your approval for a contract award to complete analysis and design for improvements to the correction facility's stormwater management system. As the Board is aware, this work is necessary for 2 reasons. First, the existing stormwater systems on the site are made up of 3 underground galleries that collect rain from heavy storms and then hold it while that water dissipates and is absorbed slowly into the ground. Recent analysis determined that 2 of the 3 galleries are working exactly as designed and to performance specs, but the 3rd gallery is not. Occasionally, water is discharged from the site, which is no longer permitted by regulations, so we must engineer and implement a solution for that problem. Second, any expansion of the corrections facility must also meet current stormwater management requirements. As you know, the corrections facility was intended to be expanded in phases over time as our detention needs changed, and the Board has approved moving ahead with a jail expansion in the current budget process. So we must engineer and complete the work to support that expansion with this system. After soliciting for qualified design firms, we received 3 proposals, 2 of which met our requirements and were selected for interview. The interview panel has now recommended the firm of Skillings Connolly for award. We are now seeking your authorization to negotiate an award for that contract. We'll finance this work through bonds paid from the existing real estate excise taxes revenues, and the design services are not expected to will not exceed $100,000. Be happy to answer any questions. We also have the project manager, Brady Knowles, here with me if you have further questions about the project.
Any questions? Any comment?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Nope. Is there a motion for this?
I move to authorize the Central Services Director to negotiate and execute a contract for the Thurston County Flex Unit expansion for civil stormwater design and engineering services not to exceed $100,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, and that motion carries.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Martin. You bet. Next, we have pretrial services, and we have Mary Ann Clear, who's the Director of Pretrial Services, to make a request for proposal for pretrial services case management system. Is that correct?
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good
How are you?
afternoon.
I'm here to request the authorization to have pretrial services go out for an RFP. We've been doing extensive research for the market. Our pretrial services governing board is in support of this project. We've also gone in front of the ITC and requested that. They are in support of it as well. You can see that John Thunheim is here, and we've been partnering with his office as well and working with the IT department here in the county. Our current operations for pretrial services, we are using a system that doesn't support what we are doing. We are hand counting data and entering it into Excel spreadsheets. So obtaining a case management system will allow us to be more efficient, be able to provide reports and data that will assess our performance measures, and I will be able to report how we were doing, look at the department operations, and be able to report on that as well. We'll be much more efficient and be partnering and collaborating with the prosecutor's office and public defense and basically streamline what we are doing. So that is why I'm making this request.
You bet. Is there any questions of Mary Ann? No?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I do. I'm looking at the approximate schedule from the advertisement for the RFP to the period of performance end date. And I'm going to presume this is as best guess as you can get. But when I look at the execution of the contract towards the end of April, is the period of performance to begin? You'll start implementing May 1. You'll start this new software and start using this case management system?
May I ask Scott Flores to come up here?
Yeah.
He's the project manager, and
Sure.
Bring it.
been working with him.
Bring it where you want. That's fine.
You're the boss. You can do that.
It's not a trick. I'm not trying to trick anybody.
Wanted to explain why I'm asking Scott to come up here.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry,
Thank you,
Marianne.
sir. After the contract is signed, that would be when the,
Name.
I'm sorry, Scott Flores. I do project management with the IT department here
Okay, sure.
in Central Services. And after the contract is signed, there's a period of configuration and implementation that goes on. So that's when we work with the vendor to make this custom configure the system to cater to Mary Ann's and pretrial services needs. And the ending date there, the ending period of performance date, is when the system is expected and will be contracted to be implemented and go live.
Okay, so at the end of October, then you'll get your case management system, presumably, and we'll see how it functions then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I didn't understand the period of performance begin and end date, if that was just an evaluation period, or if that was, you explained it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, that's it.
Is there a motion for this?
Yep. There's the other's window. I move to approve advertisement of a request for proposal for pretrial services case management system.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries. Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you.
You
Thank
bet. So next we have item number 7, which is the community planning and economic development, and we have 3 items with them. And so the first one is with Mr. Stephen Bramwell, who is the WSU director, and talk about the final annual interagency agreement between WSU Extension and Thurston County. How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, sure. You got the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Honorable Commissioners, as you know, I'm the Director of Washington State University Extension, and I'm here today to present a Memorandum of Agreement, otherwise known as in your documentation as an interagency agreement between Thurston County and WSU. This agreement is presented annually and renews the shared funding relationship between the county and WSU. Your biennial budget for 2017 and 2018 established salary contributions from the county to WSU Extension employees. This contribution helps us, the WSU County Extension employees, as well as county employees within Extension. It provides for us to provide economic development and community programs to the citizens of Thurston County. For 2018, these salary contributions have been established at $135,237, and about $90,237 of this funding comes from the general fund. So I want to personally thank you for considering the renewal of this annual memorandum, and all of us at the Extension Office look forward to carrying out programs in 2018 for the citizens of Thurston County.
All right, any questions, comments of Stephen?
Keep up the good work, Stephen.
Thank you very much. We will.
And last week, for members of the public, last week we had an extensive briefing that Stephen put on, and I'm quite impressed with the work that WSU does, Extension does with Thurston County at the fairgrounds. It's more in depth than many people even have to guess that it would be. And so thank you very much for your work as well. Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we post our impact report on the WSU Extension website, and that goes through and details all the outcomes of our programs in 4-H, in Master Gardeners, in Water Resources, Agriculture, in all of our programs. So you can go online and see our work reported there. Anybody who's interested can as well.
Is the financial piece online as well?
That I presented last week, it is. Yeah, it provides a description of our funding mechanism. And the county contributes along with WSU, and then our work locally generates grant funding and extramural funds to contribute. And lastly, one of your comments last week was your great appreciation for the volunteers who contribute so much time. And our work helps to bring their work into the community, and your funding helps to make that happen.
Yeah, and we've let people know where you're located.
Yeah, we are now located at 3054 Carpenter at the Thurston County Fairgrounds. So it's our new residence, and I was going to mention this before stepping down, is that you also contributed generously in the remodel of the Benechek Hall out of the fairgrounds, and we are in and doing our work, and we did put some paint on a couple of walls. I wouldn't necessarily say it's in honor of Heart Health Month. It's not necessarily red, it's crimson. But nevertheless, yes, it looks very sharp, and we thank you for the nice facility to do our work.
Did Commissioner Blake come up with that color for you?
Not this time.
No.
We made sure it was spec Crimson Cougar. Yeah.
Smart move.
Wonderful, thank you.
Your Honor, thank you very much.
Not related, but will you have a juice bicycle for the fairground?
Absolutely.
Good, okay.
Yeah, we'll be doing over 300 smoothies in August.
There you go. Nothing else, that's an inspiration to come out there. Huh?
All right, thank you very much.
Is there a motion for?
I move to approve and execute the interagency agreement between Thurston County and WSU Extension.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and your motion carries, Stephen.
Thank you. It's an honor to do work for you.
You bet. Thank you, sir. So the next item we have under Community Planning and Economic Development is the 2018 Shellfish Protection Fund Work Program, and Allison Osterberg is here to tell us a little bit of background as far as staffing. Hello, Allison.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Allison Osterberg, a senior planner with the Community Planning and Economic Development Department, and I'm here today to request the board approve the Shellfish Protection Fund 2018 work program. The Shellfish Protection Fund has been an annual source of funding for activities focused on improving water quality in Henderson Inlet and Nisqually Reach by reducing bacteria pollution and improving shellfish areas. In past years, the fund has received 28% of the Thurston Conservation District's annual assessment, and this represents the amount paid by property owners that live within Nisqually Reach and the Henderson Inlet Shellfish Protection District boundaries. The process this year was somewhat delayed from past years as the Conservation District did not approve base funding for 2018 However, the work program that is before you was revised to make use of the balance that's been held over in the fund from past years. The interagency agreement between the Conservation District and the county requires that the work program be mutually approved by the Conservation District Board of Supervisors and the Board of County Commissioners. The Conservation District and the Shellfish District Stakeholder Advisory Committee work collaboratively each year to develop the work program. And over the decade that it's been in place, projects supported by the Shellfish Fund have helped lead to improvements in water quality in both Henderson Inlet and Nisqually Reach, and we've seen a lot of acres of shellfish beds reopen because of the work that's been done. For this year, for 2018, the work program proposes to spend $247,475.45 and will fund work to be completed by the Conservation District, Thurston County's own Environmental Health Division, Pacific Shellfish Institute, and the Puget Sound Restoration Fund. The projects included in the work plan will fund financial aid in the form of grants to low-income residents in the watersheds who need to complete septic repairs, rebates for the installation of septic risers, which make inspections and maintenance of septic systems easier, educational programs informing residents, families, businesses, and school children about shoreline and water quality issues. There's some great programs that help get kids down to Puget Sound and on the beach and learning about those connections. Technical support for farms and agricultural users in the watersheds to complete conservation plans, and also technical and financial support to provide cost share for water quality improvement practices. And there's also a project to do some native oyster restoration, which is really cool. The Shellfish District Stakeholder Advisory Committee met with the project proponents on October 20th and discussed the proposals again on December 19th and included a letter of recommendation to the board. And the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors approved this work program on January 30th. And so approval by the Board of County Commissioners is the last step needed before work on these projects can begin. And that concludes my staff report. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Questions? Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Doing a good job. Didn't have any questions.
Allison always does a good job.
Mm-hmm.
This is just far more, as you just explained, Allison, than just shellfish protection, because it actually digs down into, no pun intended, homeowners' septic grants and the riser rebate programs and such. I was looking at how many people that it can help with rebates, from $50 for 150 people to 22 low-income households, and financial aid to low-income citizens. I mean, that's way cool because it's so doggone important, our septic systems.
Yeah, as you were all aware, kind of in tandem with this program is the county's operation and maintenance program for septic systems. We have those requirements that folks in Nisqually and Henderson Inlet have to do regular maintenance on their septic systems. And the fund, through the Shellfish Fund, we're able to, when people identify problems with their septic systems through that maintenance, they've got a crack in their system, they've got something that needs to be fixed, those can be very expensive. And so low-income folks in the watersheds, if they encounter these issues, can come to the county and we can provide grants to help them cover those costs. And the risers are those green circles that people see. It makes it very easy for folks to go and do those regular inspections and maintenance. And so we provide rebates for people to install those.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And many people don't realize that we offer that kind of assistance or help. So thank you.
All righty. Is there a motion for this?
I move to approve the 2018 Shellfish Protection Fund Work Program.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. So that motion carries. And I think you have another one.
I've got another one for you.
Sure. This is amending the land use and permitting fee schedule.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm also here today to request the Board of County Commissioners adopt a resolution amending the Thurston County land use and permitting fee schedule and amending other procedures as mandated by a change in state law. The resolution that's before you takes action in response to engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6091, which was signed into law on January 19th. The county has to take this action to be responsive to the activities that are mandated in that change to state law. The bill includes provisions that change the way Thurston County has to review building permits that intend to use a well for domestic uses. And that bill was developed in response to the Washington Supreme Court case Whatcom v. Hurst. So folks have heard about the Hurst decision. This was a state bill that was passed in January, and it was tied up with the holdup over the budget. And so that bill was passed to address procedures for ensuring water availability under the Growth Management Act and State Water Code. The new rules apply only to development that relies on what is known as a permit-exempt well for domestic use. So these are typically wells that are drilled for smaller uses, such as for a single-family home. And there aren't changes to other types of water uses. So if you're connecting to a municipal source or to a water system, or you have a well that's just being used for agriculture or industrial uses, nothing changes. But for folks that are doing a building permit that's relying on the kind of a permit-exempt well for a single-family home, the resolution you're looking at will change our current processes in two ways. First, the bill that was adopted by the state requires the county to collect a $500 fee for each of these applications. $350 of that fee must be transferred to the Department of Ecology, and the rest is maintained by the county to cover our administrative costs. So when folks come in to submit an application for a residential building permit, they will have to fill out a form and pay this $500 fee as part of that building permit application. Second, the state bill sets limits on water use that vary depending on the location of the property. These limits need to be recorded on the property title. So for properties that are in either the Nisqually or the Chehalis watersheds in Thurston County, water use will be limited to an annual average of 3,000 gallons per day per connection. And for properties that are in Deschutes and Kennedy-Goldsboro watersheds, water use would be limited to 950 gallons per day per connection. And those uses may be further curtailed during a drought emergency. County staff will be on hand to will require that applicants record an affidavit attesting to these water use limitations before the county issues a building permit. And county staff will have materials on hand to help guide people through the process and understand which watershed they're in and which rules apply to them. The bill also requires that the county track building permits and subdivisions approved in each watershed. And so we're working with staff to develop the ability to track all of those applications. All of these provisions are being put in place until a broader watershed planning process can be completed for each area, and the county also will be taking part in that process. The bill that was signed at the state level included an emergency provision, and it took effect immediately on January 19th. And typically bills of this nature would include a time period for the county to respond, such as 90 days or 60 days or something like that. But in this case, that didn't happen. It became effective immediately upon signature, and that's the reason why the county needs to take such immediate action to be responsive. It was a very complicated bill that was passed, and staff are still working to understand all the details and implications from it and how we're implementing it. Well, one thing that we're discussing is the need to see whether the fee will cover all the costs that the county will incur in responding to this state mandate. And so you can expect that we'll be bringing forward additional changes in the coming months as we work through all of our questions. And because of this, the resolution before you will expire on December 31st unless the board takes action to extend or amend it. So in summary, this resolution is a path forward to be immediately responsive to the changes in state law. And that concludes my staff report. I'm here for any questions you might have.
Any comments, questions?
Only I'd like to reiterate that this is a mandate by state law that we take this action.
Correct.
Okay.
As you say, Allison, that staff is going to be working through this to assess how much staff time and work there is to be done in the permitting to see if that $150 that we will be allowed to keep as collected, we collect that $500 from the state or for the state on their behalf. Is it our supposition that that 150 will not be sufficient funding for the state for our efforts?
It's hard to say at this point. We're going to need to operate for a little bit and see kind of how much is required. Everybody's kind of both at the local jurisdiction and at the state level at the Department of Ecology are scrambling a little bit to figure out how to be responsive. And so there's a lot of work to be done in setting up these watershed groups and developing response plans. And we still need to assess how much time commitment it's going to be for county staff to participate in those.
Okay. And at the risk of sounding redundant and repeating myself and saying the same thing over and over again, even though this is a minimally funded mandate, it is a compulsory mandate.
Correct.
And I just want the folks to know that, and this is not just Thurston County, this is statewide, effect immediately. Boom, January 19th, 2018. So no other questions. I'm done grandstanding.
For this resolution, is there a timeline on this as far as doing the assessment? Is there to the December 31st? Is that the intended state?
So the resolution in front of you would become effective immediately as soon as you take action, and it would expire on December 31st. But the plan, we're already working on, we have some things that still need to go through a little more internal review and legal review, and we have to see how things are working. So there will be items brought back to you before December.
And
yes.
for some of the other public comments.
Yep. And if we make any changes to things that are affecting the code, there'll be public hearing and comment period associated with those.
There you go. Thank you. Any others?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to adopt a resolution amending the Thurston County land use and permitting fee schedule as mandated by state law to add a new fee for new domestic uses relying on a permit-exempt well and other measures.
Second. I have to second it.
Reluctantly?
Reluctantly.
Okay. Yeah. It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, and then motion carries. Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you.
You bet. So next we have what we call a Commissioners and County Managers item, and we have a resolution supporting prosecuting attorneys, Mr. John Thunheim's potential claim for prosecution. I don't know if Romero's going to take it or Mr. Thunheim.
I'm just going to introduce this resolution supporting Prosecutor John Thunheim on the prosecution of potential claims, and I'd like to introduce you, the Thurston County Prosecutor, John Thunheim.
Hello, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Again, my name is John Thunheim. I'm the County Prosecutor. As you know, under statute, the County Prosecutor is not only authorized to prosecute criminal cases in the name of Thurston County and in the name of the State of Washington, but also is empowered to prosecute civil claims in the name of Thurston County. Over the last several months, I've been in conversation with a number of my colleagues throughout the state about litigation that has started on a variety of levels against the corporations that created, manufactured, and distributed opioids. As you know, this county, as most counties, if not all counties in the state, are experiencing a significant opioid epidemic. This is really of unprecedented proportions, and it is true actually in many other states across the country. As these potential litigation claims have been investigated, information has been revealed, which has led us to conclude that, in fact, the companies that manufactured and distributed opioids did so in a manner that was potentially misleading and contributed, in fact, to the ongoing epidemic of addiction that we have here in this county and throughout the state. Not only do we have folks reporting for or seeking treatment for addiction for opioids themselves, but in law enforcement we have noticed a significant increase in the use of illegal heroin in this county, which is, when you look at the data and the anecdotes behind many of the folks that have turned to heroin actually became addicted to prescription opioids preceding their heroin addiction. This is really a crisis for both public safety and public health. Several weeks ago, you'll recall we met in executive session along with the public health director and discussed the nature of what such a litigation of this sort, in which I laid out to you my concerns, and there was an indication of support to go forward. I have since made that decision to initiate litigation against one or more of the manufacturers of opioids on behalf of Thurston County. I think I told you at the time that I would only do that with your partnership and with your support. And I appreciate that very much, because I think it is essential that we be aligned in the purpose and the goals of this particular lawsuit. We are in the final stages of preparing to initiate this litigation, and the proclamation or the document before you today is designed to allow you to publicly endorse that, and upon that I will be moving forward, and I thank you for taking it under consideration.
Comments, questions?
Thank you for doing that for the citizens of Thurston County.
I wholeheartedly support you, John, and I want to ask, I'm sure the answer is yes, but for the folks here and for the folks watching at home, on the website you'll be able to read this resolution online, of our resolution in support of what you're doing, because it has some great warehouses in it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
And we'll certainly have a link on our website to it as well, and ongoing updates periodically about the progress of the lawsuit, so the public can know what we're doing and what the progress is.
Which will be way down the line, I would imagine.
This is a lawsuit that will take a considerable amount of time. It is really very similar in scope and nature to the tobacco lawsuits of many years ago. But be that as it may, in my estimation, it is something that we need to do to, one, hold these companies accountable, but also to get the restitution that we are really deserving in order to be able to respond to this.
It also helps put a big neon sign to the issue so everybody is aware of it.
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to second what has been said to your involvement, your team's involvement, and as we move forward to keep the Thurston County community health at paramount, and of course any of the criminal or civil actions that go behind that, we're certainly supportive of. So
thank you.
With that, is there a motion?
You bet, and thank you for your leadership on this. I move to approve the resolution supporting Prosecutor John Thunheim's prosecution of potential claims against the manufacturers and wholesalers of prescription opioid painkillers.
Second.
Been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, and that motion carries for you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome, sir.
So now it brings us to the point where commissioners may comment or make any kind of feedback to the public as far as their committees they work on or sit on, or anything they might have seen in the public they'd like to address. Is there anything you have?
I guess I'd like to explain to the public that oftentimes we're taking action up here with maybe limited information that's going out to the public at this time. But I would like to point out that all of these items that we do take action on are discussed ahead of time in a work session, and that work session is open to the public anytime anybody wants to come and listen to a little more in-depth conversation on some of these issues. So that being one issue, I guess I would just say that my prior week maybe has been tied up just the majority of the week with gophers, the Hurst Decision, and nitrogen. And for those of you that aren't aware of nitrogen issues, we hear about nitrogen in the river, nitrogen in Capitol Lake, nitrogen out in front of the lot plant, and that all has to do with the excessive nitrogen and where does it come from. And that's what we're looking for right now. So there will be more to come on where excessive nitrogen comes from. I had a good meeting with the Weyerhaeuser Timber Company last week, and they do a lot of commercial fertilizing in the headwaters of the Deschutes, for an example, but they tell me they are attempting at all levels to be responsible, although there are no baselines that they had, nor did our health department have, to compare from 50 years ago when this started to now. So we're looking into that. And for the presentation about the 95% loss of property on to the oak tree, I guess what I would suggest you take a look at, because I can't give legal advice, but you might take a look at the Washington State Constitution, which actually gives a little more protection than the federal Constitution does. That's Article 1, Section 16 under eminent domain. It refers to taking or damaging through the regulatory process, and that the possibility exists that you could get a jury to hear your case at some point. Not advocating, I'm just talking about that's what it says in the Washington State Constitution. So our hearts are with you, but we have to work within a system.
Sure. Anything else?
I think I'll just let it go with that.
Sure. Can I
looking forward to hearing.
Echo one of your comments.
Sure.
Absolutely, at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays, we go over the agenda in detail, and you're probably more than welcome to come there. But it's not a work session per se. We do not do planning and analysis in the sense that we just go over we call it pre-agenda, and that's really the difference between that. So, go ahead.
For folks at home, this Friday, February 16th, and I emphasize February 16th because if you're watching this at home after this week, don't show up because you're going to miss it. That's at Don Juan's, is the Guac Talk. Don Juan's in Tenino, 11:30 in the morning, and Pepper's Mexican Restaurant downtown on Cherry Street in Olympia will be doing Guac Talk. And it's an hour of interaction with folks in the community to address several different needs. And you might see some results of that or photos sometime on a Facebook thereafter. This last February 7th, Wednesday, I attended at the EDC, Economic Development Council's, their Alliance Open House on 6th Avenue in Lacey, and participated in the Thurston County's public open houses, one in Rochester and one in Lacey, where we're gaining information from the public as to prioritizing their government and issues. Attended the Leadership Thurston County Distinguished Leadership Award. You'll find photos from that event on Facebook. I attended last Friday. This is kind of cool. District Court, and I'm told that Judge Brett Buckley put this together. Every year they commit themselves to a pledge, and it's a big poster, probably about the size of the dais here, and it's got the logo on there, and everybody, all the employees in the office and the District Court office signed this pledge, pledging serving justice through serving people. And I loved it, and I was invited to go, and I got to sign that dadgum poster, and it's posted up on the wall. And they take that very seriously. And then yesterday, I attended all day a retreat on the Community Investment Partnership. Several electeds sit around a table, numerous from all over the county, along with United Way, and decide before RFPs come out how we're going to divvy up money, serving the various high needs folks in our community through funding the different nonprofits that attend to basic needs. Very worthwhile work. It's a long day, but a lot of work was accomplished. So that was my week. And if anybody wanted to hear or see more, learn more, you're welcome to go on Facebook and friend me, you'll see, or like me. Thank you.
I like you. All righty. So for me, I think I'll speak for all three of us. Went to the. Oh, did you go to the Capital Land Trust breakfast?
I did.
Yeah,
okay.
I
forgot. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. So all three of us were there, and they had a wonderful program as usual. It's the fourth time I've been, and they talk about a lot of great environmental items that we have here in Thurston County and some of the programs. Amanda Reed, the executive director, is absolutely marvelous, and that whole organization does great stuff. Two of us were able to attend the welcoming the new employees. I mention that because we have the best employees in Thurston County, and even though they might be new and since 10 or 15 days on the job, it's great to see them, and we invite more people to apply. We love people to come in here with their talent, their services, and serve the constituents of this county. And then also we Distinguished Leaders Award. To see those three amazing people that they gave awards to was just phenomenal. How they give back to the community, no matter what private sector, nonprofit, government. This is a really great program to recognize those who are contributing to the county as a whole. And then I did a little filming at TCTV on civic harmony, just what that means in terms of some of the national or regional level disruption, you might say, social disruption. I gave a little speech on that, and it'll televise here shortly. So just good stuff that's going on. So now I'll turn over to the county manager to see what the calendar update is.
Thank you, Commissioners. Let me walk you through the upcoming calendar, which it will include the next 2 weeks, considering the next Tuesday, February the 20th. The Board of County Commissioners in the afternoon has been canceled. Beginning today at 3:30 in the afternoon, in a few minutes, you have your regular Board of Health meeting. Tomorrow, Wednesday, February 14th, at noon, you have the opportunity to have a lunch meeting with your appointed directors here in this room. 2 in the afternoon, you have a briefing on the Masala Meadows Prairie Habitat Conservation Bank. 3 in the afternoon, you have a pre-appeal information related to a land use appeal. And the hearing is scheduled for next week. At 3:30 in the afternoon tomorrow, you have a briefing on the TMDL, which is the total maximum daily load related to the Deschutes River. Nothing on Thursday, February 15th. Nothing on February 16th. Moving on to next week, Monday, February the 19th, the courthouse is closed in observance to the President's Day holiday. Tuesday, February the 20th, 9 in the morning, you have a agenda setting where you'll be reviewing the agenda for the meeting on the 27th of February. And again, in the afternoon of Tuesday, February the 20th, the Board of County Commissioners has been canceled, as well as the Transportation Benefit District meeting has been canceled. Wednesday, February the 21st, 9 in the morning, you will have the actual hearing on the appeal related to the Washington Tractor Special Use Permit. At 9 a.m., you have a briefing related to the Board of Health, which is related to the making drug overdose notifiable conditions, where the health officer will give you a perspective on that particular matter. At 10 in the morning, you will have another appeal hearing. This is related to the Green Appeal land use. At noon, you will have the opportunity to have a lunch meeting with your fellow elected officials here in the county. In the afternoon of February the 20th, at 2, you have a GIS parcel layer feasibility study briefing. And at 2:30, you have the comprehensive plan docket follow-up conversation. Thursday, February the 22nd, at 9 in the morning, you have a Superior Court update. At 10 in the morning on February the 2nd, you have the Commissioners check-in, which I will be developing a specific agenda, and it will be posted 24 hours in advance. February 23rd, at 5:30 in the afternoon, you have a social gathering related with the Olympia Master Builders Association. And on Saturday, February the 24th, at 5 in the afternoon, you had a heads-off with the Together organization. And that is located in the South Puget Sound Community College, Lacey campus, 4220 6th Avenue, Lacey, Washington. Moving on to Monday, February the 26th, 3 in the afternoon, you have the Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council. And moving on to the February 27th, we'll come back here and do it all over again. Yay. Thank you.
Different topic. Different topic, but do it all over again.
Any other comments or questions?
No, sir.
Nope. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I move to adjourn the Board of County Commissioners meeting of February 13, 2018.
Second.
Been moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.